Welcome to Coast Vue, the show that every single day celebrates the men and women who are making coastal Mississippi, and really Mississippi for that matter, such a great place to live, work, and play. One of the people who knows this is a great place to live, work, and play is my friend Josh Morgerman. And I'll invite him in. I'll remind you who he is, and I'll tell you why we invited him on the show and how this came about. But before we go any further, let me say from Los Angeles, Josh Morgerman, how you doing, my friend?
Great, Ricky. Awesome to be back. I feel just coming back on the show. I feel like the approach of the Mississippi half of my year. This is the kickoff in a way.
Well, Josh is, you can look him up. He's iCyclone. He's got a TV show that it's going to be premiering actually Sunday, and we'll talk more about that here in just a minute. But he's the top hurricane chaser in the world. And you know what's interesting? This is springtime. People don't want to talk about hurricanes, especially in coastal Mississippi. We always enjoy this as sort of a downtime. But Cammie said, we ought to get Josh on. And as it turned out, as she reached out to you, it just so happened that your program Mission Hurricane with Weather Spy premieres Sunday. So, we get to kill several birds with one stone. We get to catch up, see how life in LA is doing, how your house that you're building in Hancock County and Bay St. Louis is coming along. And we'll also talk about your new TV show, or the continuation of your TV show on Weather Spy. But you've been busy, haven't you, my friend?
Yeah, it's been crazy. This is the half of the year where I'm not chasing hurricanes, but I'm just kind of busy doing everything else. So yeah, it's been busy between building the house, working on post-production on the show, negotiating, my contract for hurricane coverage this year. There's just all kinds of things, but this half of the year keeps me really busy.
And then you have a successful marketing company called Symblaze. And because people who don't know you often wonder, how is it that Josh is able to go and chase her, come live in Mississippi now? What brought him here, incidentally, was the fact that the pandemic didn't enable him to be able to travel around the world like he normally does. And when he came here and found Bay St. Louis, he fell in love with it. Didn't you, Josh?
Oh, I did. I mean, absolutely. It was, it's so funny how, I discovered, coastal Mississippi, really discovered it because of the pandemic. It was, as you said, I was stuck in North America. I couldn't leave the United States really. And I was like, all right, I might as well live in the heart of the USA's hurricane country. And Mississippi was a midpoint. Had only been there briefly before, but then just in the course of living there, I really, really dug the lifestyle, and I just super connected with it to the point that now I'm putting down roots there.
Yeah, you bought a lot in just right within walkable distance of the downtown area of Bay St. Louis. You hired a local architect, and things are progressing. And we'll come back to all that in a second, get an update on how that's going. But the point I was making, though, is that people wonder, how is it that Josh can do this? And the reason he can do this is because he's literally a branding expert. His advice and counsel is sought out by some of the biggest and most important corporations in the United States. And Symblaze has been a real good investment for you over the years, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, it has. Although I'll say, it's a little crazy. The way things have progressed, I have two full-time careers now because, chasing hurricanes, it's a career now. It's not like sort of an expensive hobby like it was. It is, just my work on TV and everything else has become a second career. So I'm just kind of balancing the two and just basically trying to force both into, into my time, which I'm able to do. I figure it out. I enjoy work and I enjoy both careers. Sometimes there are occasional let's say collisions between the two, but I got a great business partner on the corporate side, and he's able to kind of, cover the slack for me, just to make sure I can kind of just do what I need to do when the hurricanes start coming.
So will you continue forward with your Weather Nation gig?
We are talking right now. We're having discussions about how this coming year might look, and there's a good chance of that. We're trying to see if our visions about the year and what we can do are going to align. That is being discussed now.
Yeah, I noticed recently, though, on social media, you posted a picture of you and one of the producers that you worked with on your previous reality show that was a worldwide hit, produced by the BBC. And is there a chance something might come of that visit?
Yeah, that you caught that. Yeah, so that was from Hurricane Man, which was UK TV and BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation. That was my first big series, and James Lavelle, one of the directors. The show had three directors. Yeah, he was in LA. He's actually on the West Coast right now, and he and I got together. Hadn't seen each other since before the pandemic, so it was an incredible reunion. He, like me, is a professional adventurer, and he's a filmmaker, and we were getting together and talking about possible projects and things. Right now, there are no plans to bring Hurricane Man back, but he and I were talking about some other, possible projects. Guys like him and me, we always have different possible projects on the stove. We're always kind of looking for that next big project, whether it's something we're leading or just kind of playing a supporting role in.
Well, what's interesting about, sort of the difference between Hurricane Man and Mission Hurricane. Incidentally, Mission Hurricane, which we'll come back to in just a second, has been well produced. I mean, it's very impressively produced. A quality team you've got around you. But it's basically looking back at hurricanes that you've experienced, a lot of the content you developed, and then building that into a show with really good production quality. Whereas Hurricane Man, it was literally a team of people following you and developing this incredible content that was being, put together and captured by this team. I mean, a very expensive undertaking, I can imagine.
Yeah, and you're like an expert on my work, but you perfectly summarized the difference between the two shows. And yeah, like Hurricane Man, that was a big budget, series. That was a crew just basically following me around the world, and my agreement with UK TV and BBC was that they would not tell me where to go. They would not interfere because I'm a hurricane chaser, and that was one thing in my contract. Like, I decide where I go, and they honored that, and that meant, okay, I'm going to Japan now. Now I want to go to Mexico. Now I want to go to Florida. It was just all. Now I want to go to the Philippines. I mean, all over with this big crew following me around, and it was crazy. And they made for some great live action shows. Now my new series, Mission Hurricane, as you said, is a look back at my greatest adventures. Now, I've been in 67 hurricanes, which is a world record. There's no one dead or alive who's been in more hurricanes on the ground, I should say. I'm not talking, there's of course the guys who fly into them in the recon airplanes. That's something else. But in terms of being on the ground, no one's been in more. So I had this unbelievable library of sort of past experiences and past adventures. And Juke and Media, which is now part of Trusted Media Brands, they had the idea to develop a show around this, using sort of my unbelievable archive of footage and also kind of war stories. And so that is this series, Mission Hurricane. Each episode I take the viewer through one of these, unbelievable sort of adventures, around the world. And it's a great series. And like you said, they've thrown a lot into it in terms of the production values and just really building out these stories and making them rich and multi-layered and everything else. It's a great team working on it. I had a great director that I'm working with. His name is Paul Emerson. The lead editor, Sean Fanton, he's really talented, and he's got like about 4 editors working under him. I mean, it's a production with a lot of people on it, and I'm really lucky to be working with them. And I continue to work with them. We shot most of it in October and December last year. Now we're in post-production, and I go into, Juke and Media is in LA, and I go in probably, every other week. I go in to view a couple of episodes, give them notes, have some creative meetings. That's one interesting thing, is they've kept me involved. Some of these reality shows, the lead talent, they do the shooting and then they're like, get out of here. They don't want to hear. People don't know this, but in reality shows, like, the person starring in the show is like on the sort of power hierarchy, is like basically just above the person who cleans the office. Like, you're not powerful or anything. You're just kind of like, you're basically like almost like hired help. But on this show, they're really giving me, I really do have a role in post-production in terms of consulting, technically. And also they take my creative inputs too, which is really cool. And that makes the show better.
Well, actually, I thought that you did a good job. This point about sort of the pedestrian nature of going through the process. You know, that what comes out on the other end is you star in this series, and there's celebrity that goes with that, and people notice you, and it's cool and all of that. But there's another aspect to it, and when we get on the other side, I'll tell you the other aspect that I saw on social media, and we can chat a little bit more about that as we go through it. But we're visiting with my friend Josh Morgerman, who over the past 2 or 3 years, he and I have become really good friends, and I don't envy him. I'm not the kind of guy that's going to go look for an adventure in the eye of a storm, but that's what he does, and what he learns and what he's able to say about it, actually, and the experiences he goes through, I think saves lives as people pay attention to what is possible during a storm. For those of us who live in, literally Hurricane Alley, it's something to learn from what Josh has to teach. So we'll see you after this, and we'll continue the conversation. Welcome back to Coast Vue. We're talking with my friend iCyclone, the top hurricane chaser in the world, who lives in Bay St. Louis during the hurricane season, and now he's building a house there. He used to rent Hurricane House, and now he's building Hurricane House. So Josh is going to be with us for a while, and I'm excited to have him as a friend. Hey, when we went to break, we were talking about how this process of developing this reality TV show, looking back at some of your best and most challenging chases, there's a star quality to it. People recognize you. There's a celebrity that goes with all that. But the process, as you pointed out, you're just a little bit better than a janitor in terms of where you lie on the production aspect of it. What's interesting, in fact, while you were doing it, I remember you posting something about you'd gone back to the room after a long day's work, and maybe you were eating a candy bar or something. But what you said about it was like, "Oh, the drudgery starts again tomorrow." But that's the way it is. It's not so sexy during the process, is it?
Yeah. No, seriously, the sort of the underbelly of sort of show business, it is not what people on the outside think. And I remember that post you're talking about, but when we were doing most of the shooting on Hurricane Man, it was long, hard shooting days. And my life was just day after day of, I get up really early. I drive into the studio, makeup done. Then you're on set all day, all morning shooting for hours. Then I would do lunch alone because I didn't want to talk to anyone because I had to save my voice. So I'd just sit alone in the dressing room, eat lunch, then a long afternoon of shooting into the evening, drive home, pick up dinner, eat it in front of the TV, maybe eat a pint of ice cream, pass out, start the process over again. No socializing, no nothing, because I had to save my voice because the shooting days were so long. So it was, I know it's like boohoo, but it's kind of a lonely life when you get deep into those kind of shooting schedules and stuff, because you're really having to stay focused and do nothing else. And it's funny, and all that goes into it on the other side.
Hey, listen, when they did the first one, but I tell you what, before we go to the first one, which was Hurricane Haiyan, and I'll make the point that it was clear that this was going to become a series after I watched that. But we'll come back to what that unleashed here in just a second. Let's talk about Weather Spy for just a second. It's an app that I have on my phone. Some actually have it as part of their cable service or whatever. But we live in an app world today, so you can load this up on your TV, and if you want to watch some, really what I mentioned to Josh before the program started today is that they've gone so far just in the past year with the quality of the programming that they're bringing. Really great program. In fact, I watched one this morning about the earthquake in Nepal, and sort of all about that. It was really, really interesting stuff. And I watched some clips, in fact, that were incredible clips that they've gotten from all around the world about weather events and earthquakes and so on. But it's pretty good. When I teed mine up this morning, the very first thing that popped up in a little, you have a lot of content down below that you can click on, but there's sort of an automatic player that comes on, and literally when I brought it up, the first thing in that automatic player was Josh in his sort of dramatic way talking about Mission Hurricane. And I thought, well, that's it, which premieres Sunday, premieres Sunday. So a lot of work from that first one when you did Hurricane Haiyan to having a premiere on this Sunday, isn't there?
Oh yeah, back in the spring was when the studio said, okay, let's try this out. They basically approved the pilot. Let's make a pilot. So I went in, we shot that about Super Typhoon Haiyan in the Philippines, which was basically the equivalent of a Category 5 hurricane that flattened the city that I was in. It was very, just made for very dramatic TV and storytelling. So we shot that in May. It premiered in August, and it rated really well. It was actually quite a smash. It had incredible traffic and viewership, and then based on the performance of that was when they approved the rest of the series. So then we shot 12 more episodes basically in the fall and into the early winter, and those have been in post-production, and that's actually what's coming out now. So I'm really excited about it. But yeah, it is the result of that pilot episode really doing well. It basically all hinged on that. And I was very happy with how it came out. And as you said, Weather Spy, the brand, not to get on like sort of my brand side, but they are sort of really, I think, adding a lot of substance to it, and they're adding some, it's going from a channel that just had a lot of kind of cool clips to sort of proper long form programming. And Mission Hurricane is one of the kind of centerpieces of that new strategy.
Yeah, it's really, I think it's going to do really well, just as Hurricane Man did really well. Coming back to Hurricane Haiyan, what's so interesting about it is that your goal is to get into the eye of these storms. And in the case of Hurricane Haiyan, the journey of positioning yourself properly in the Philippines is part of the story. And then, of course, we're talking about 190 plus mile an hour winds. In fact, I remember you saying in that program, it's been a while since I've seen it, but you said if there was a 6, this was a Category 6 storm. And then in the midst of this incredible storm, then the storm surge comes into the city, and you went from sort of experiencing it and surviving it to being sort of a rescuer and helping save local Filipinos who were caught up in the storm. And man, it made for really dramatic TV, though, didn't it?
Yeah, it sure did. It's funny. I look back at the videos. I don't remember it all really well because I was, I think I was drunk on adrenaline or something. Everything was, the storm surge came in, the whole city went underwater, and our hotel was underwater. People on the first floor the water was coming up. They're trapped in their rooms. They're screaming for help. And I think I was, like I watched, my one of my chase partners, James Reynolds, he shot footage of me carrying children up the stairs. I don't remember any of it. I just literally just blacked it all out. My only memory of any of this is just from the videos. But that stuff, those videos of me rescuing folks that got on TV and went viral. And that's actually, it was not my intention, but that was actually the start of my TV career. That was the first time that I was on TV. Because when I got back to the United States, CBS News, Bill Whitaker, he wanted the whole story, and they got me in there and got me talking. And that was actually the first time I started, getting on TV to tell the experience of what had happened, and also not just me, but what had happened to those people, those thousands of victims who lived through that.
I would assume that your experience in the Bahamas at Marsh Harbor is going to be one of the focus groups. In fact, I would have, of course, I get Haiyan. That was a very special one. Then Patricia would have been another potential. I mean, there's a lot of potentials, but your experience in the Bahamas, I still remember watching in the videos that you posted of you guys leaning against that cinder block wall in that schoolhouse that you were in. And then, of course, I've said this many times, after that hurricane, people had just presumed you were dead, that you didn't make it. And eventually you found your way back to civilization. But, man, that's going to make a really good one.
Yeah, I mean, I probably shouldn't talk about behind-the-scenes stuff, but I will. We did a lot of discussions about what we were making 12 episodes. Okay, what are those episodes going to be about? I had like this big, sort of history of storms and which were going to be this sort of like really special episodes. And of course, that one, Hurricane Dorian, which is a Category 5 that devastated Abaco Island in the Bahamas and went right through the eye, was trapped there for days afterward. That was definitely going to be an episode. The debate was they were almost going to break the format and have that be a two-part episode, because that story was so hardcore and just so it was this crazy hurricane that was just unbelievably intense. It was tied with the 1935 Florida hurricane as the strongest landfalling hurricane on record in North America. Records go back to the 1800s, and we went right through the eye. But then it was the adventure afterward. Being trapped there for days. I was living in my car, which did not blow away. The car next to mine just totally blew away. I don't know what happened to it, but mine was still there. And I lived in it for days, rationing food, lost a lot of weight. And when I got back to civilization, I felt like Ulysses. I had a tale to tell. And, it definitely, makes for some pretty intense TV.
Well, if you remember, for people who, they don't remember specific storms, but in this particular case, Hurricane Dorian, you should remember what the satellite views of this storm was as it gained strength and the eye started to pass over that part of the Bahama Islands. What was interesting about it was, if you remember, it just stalled. It came in and it just sat there for hours and hours and hours and hours. And then when it moved, it still moved so slowly. It was on that part of the Bahamas for a long, long stretch. And my goodness, you can't imagine at any island, especially given how low these islands are. And in your case, you got lucky. You got really lucky and picked the right place to be to ride out that storm. But it's a great story. I agree that it might have been two parts, because the aftermath was very important. What the national news media was saying about you. Where's Josh? Well, again, in the internet world that I was in, on most of the weather blogs, people presumed that you did not make it. And then, of course, you then reappeared, and then, of course, you got super popular after that, and all that's part of the story. Hey, when we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Josh Morgerman. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to Coast Vue. I have my dear friend Josh Morgerman, the top hurricane chaser in the world. iCyclone. You can look him up on social media, YouTube. Just an incredible dude. And we're talking about, I should also point out, I'm going to have to start adjusting how I describe you, but soon to be a Mississippi resident for at least half the time of the year, splitting time between L.A., where he owns a really successful marketing firm, and Coastal Mississippi, where he has a second career as a hurricane chaser. And now this Sunday on a really important, really emerging weather channel, he's going to have a new series. Well, actually, they've done the pilot, but the series is going to premiere on Sunday on Weather Spy. And you can download the app. And I think if you enjoy weather, if you like watching weather, worldwide sort of weather situation, Weather Spy is developing incredible content. But, Josh, it occurred to me as I was thinking about this show today that one of the things that you have to do, I've gotten to know you, and you're very specific about the way you do this. You're not someone, you're not really like a bunch of people traveling when you go. You're kind of a lone ranger in a lot of ways. Now, it's not to say that you don't join up with other Lone Rangers and you sort of may end up doing some stuff together. You did that in Mexico last year, for example. But as a general rule, you going to go do it your gig, your way, and develop the data that you developed and get the content you develop in your way. So when you get with a group that's developing a program, a reality TV program from your experiences, now called Mission Hurricane, you have to put a lot of trust in the people that you're working with. And just knowing that you're in the branding business and how focused you are on your brand, et cetera, man, you have to trust that team, don't you?
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. When you start working with a team, there is, the developing the creative trust is such a big part of it. And I'm really lucky, the two folks that matter on a show, or I mean, besides the producers, of course, because they're the ones that, actually get the show greenlit, but creatively, there's the director, who's the one that kind of helps construct the stories. And then also that guides me during the shoot, tells, kind of helps coach a good performance out of me. But then there's the editors, and a lot of folks don't realize that the difference between a good show and a boring one, and a great movie and a bad one, or the difference between how someone on a show seems, whether they seem smart or just totally stupid, is all in the editing. It's what parts they pick and how they put it together, and also, whether the story is compelling. So the director and the editor, and I just thank God, that on this show, my director Paul Emerson and the lead editor Sean Fanton, they are just rock stars, and they've really gotten deep into the content. They really care about it. I mean, interestingly, Sean Fanton, he became a complete weather nerd working on this show. Like, I could see he was like digging into National Hurricane Center stuff and like National Weather Service stuff. He started getting really into it. He's now, he got a weather station for his home. I mean, this show turned him into a total nerd. So I was delighted.
So he can join our club, right? He can join our club.
Exactly. A guy in LA. I mean, think about it. I mean, listen, being a full-time Angelino and being a weather nerd, that's kind of that can be a pretty frustrating lot, because we generally don't get, it's not like Mississippi. We don't get really interesting weather here generally. So, but he's really definitely kind of transformed. And that's very cool for me to see that, because once I feel like I'm working with folks who really care about the content and are really committed to it, then I feel like more comfortable and more excited about it. And it's just a better collaboration.
Yeah, I actually shared something on a show that's actually going to air next week, but it said that you got to, for success to happen, I mean, this better than anybody. You got to have, there are lots of elements, but there are three elements that most successful people share. One, a major positive attitude. I mean, a can-do, we can get this done, and willing to do what's necessary to get it done. Okay. Second, motivated, that they're high motivation to get to a level of excellence, and they're able to motivate others and be motivated by others. And as a result, the team thrives together. So they have motivation. And the third thing, they're committed. You have to have tremendous commitment, commitment to burn the midnight oil, to do what's necessary to achieve that level of excellence. And when you can be surrounded by a team that's really focused on those three things, you can be tremendously successful. And the other thing, what's interesting, I noticed in one of the posts that you did, this is not like there are a couple of people taking some content you did and just going in there and editing it smartly. It actually takes quite a team to pull this off, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, exactly. It's how it has to be, because there's different layers of specialty and things that go into a show. I mean, besides me, there's the director, there's the editor, there's usually multiple editors, and the different editors are doing different things. There's the motion graphics people, there's just all, it's just really like when you go into the unders, or when you go into the studio and you look at all the people working on it, it's really like, wow, it really is a production. And you see at the end on the credits, you see all these names. There are names on this project. There are people I haven't even met and don't even know. I only actually know just only some of the team, only the people I collaborate with directly. But it really is a big group effort. And like you said, it's all about the attitude and the commitment, and I definitely feel it with this project, and that just feels really good, especially because I'm sharing. These are stories that really matter to me. I really care about them. These are like my war stories, and you want to be telling those to people and putting those in the care of people who care about it.
Right. I get it. And what made me think of that, incidentally, was your editor becoming a weather nerd. And we can chuckle about that, but that's going to make him a better editor, and it's going to create opportunities for innovation, not only in terms of how the ultimate show is formulated, but actually it might even create I bet this has happened, actually, that he's come to you and said, Josh, on your next chase, capture this. Or whatever, he's already beginning to think about how this would play out.
Oh, 100%. Like, I mean, it's almost like I almost feel like you've been eavesdropping on our conversations, because that's exactly what's happened. What's really interesting is, so back in the olden days when I was first shooting, I was such a weather nerd. All I shot was the hurricane. I didn't do any sort of, what are called pieces to camera when you're talking to the camera, explaining what's happening. I didn't do any of the filming of the experience of the journey, getting into place for the hurricane. I didn't do any of that. It was just filming the hurricane. And it's hard to build an episode just with some hurricane footage. Now, based on their coaching, every chase I go on, I film everything. I film even the travels through the airport, even when a plane is delayed, just, shots on the road, all that stuff, every part of it, because that's how you make a TV show, especially this kind of road trip format where it really is not just about the hurricane, but the journey. And that's the coaching they've given me. And so what's interesting is the episodes about more recent hurricanes, they have a lot more building blocks to work with because I'm shooting more from their coaching.
Hey, yeah, what was I get it. I see it actually. I'll prove it to you. The last one of the last storms, maybe it was the last storm, but it was one of the last storms you did in Mexico, the little bitty storm where you had a chase partner and you had to go. It was really odd the way you guys had to do. It's not like it had this coast highway. You'd run sort of parallel to the coast, but then you'd have to dip down in these small towns and you had to decide, is this where this tiny eye is going to come through? And you ended up, that's the one where you run to the bar. And I said, boy, I wish you could get that bar. Wouldn't that be cool to have that bar to say, this is what saved our life. But that whole chase, where you stayed, the little hotels that you came to, the people that you encountered along the way, there was a lot more personality in it than you're used to seeing on the videos that you typically post at your iCycling site. So I'm assuming that was influenced by that, right?
100%, exactly. That was Hurricane Rosalind in Mexico, and just for folks who don't know, didn't make news in the United States. It was a very violent but tiny hurricane. We went right through the eye, and the whole thing lasted an hour. Literally just came and went, but it was really scary. But like you said, the journey getting there, to this very remote town and how we picked it, it was very complicated. And, what I find more and more is the folks who follow my work, they really want to know all that stuff that goes into getting into the right spot, all the lead up to it, the road trip, the decision making, the unpleasant moments, the moments of indecision, and fatigue. Folks want all of it. They really want to come along for the ride. And I've been trying to do that more in my social media, in my YouTube videos, and now Mission Hurricane, the series, which is all about that. It's just kind of bringing you along for the ride.
Hey, one other point about Rosalind that I enjoyed actually was, if I remember, your traveling partner in that case, who was also doing a chase of his own, spoke Spanish, if I remember that right. And so you would encounter people along the way. It was very interesting the way people were very accommodating. They were. You're coming into these small towns that have no idea who you are, and suddenly, you're finding rooms to stay in, and you're finding places to stay, and you whether you're in the Dominican Republic or wherever you end up being, Philippines or other parts of Mexico, of course, anywhere in the United States, you really encounter some people who are just good to you, don't you?
Oh, 100%, absolutely. And that's kind of the gift of storm chasing like this, globally, is that, just going to all kinds of random points on the map and on the earth and just kind of meeting people I wouldn't otherwise have met.
That's pretty cool stuff. This is Josh Morgerman. We'll continue on the other side. We'll see you after this break. Welcome back to Coast Vue. If I had to sort of develop a long list of people that I've come in contact with that I didn't know prior to doing Coast Vue. Certainly there's some young leaders here in coastal Mississippi I didn't know when I was publisher. A lot of people who I did know and worked shoulder to shoulder with in the community, but people like Josh Morgerman. Think about my young friend Austin Golding at Golding Barge up in Vicksburg and the work that they're doing. It's great to be in contact with people like that to get to know them better. But I always was a weather nerd, period. That's, full stop. I'm a weather nerd. And so I sort of knew who Josh was. And then, of course, as we discussed earlier, his Dorian experience really put him on the map big with a lot of people in America, really around the world. And certainly that's true with me as well. So when he came here to stay in coastal Mississippi, I was really eager to get him on my show to get to know him better. And we just developed a friendship. And, that's sort of where we are today. We're going to get an update on his house in Bay St. St. Louis here in just a second. But before we go any further, Weather Spy, make a note of that. Weather Spy, the app, you can pull it, download it. Actually, you'd be glad you did. I mean, I spent a little bit of time on it from time to time. A lot of great content. And his new series, Mission Hurricane, which premieres Sunday, will be there as well. So you'll be able to, sort of watch and sort of really great retrospective on some of the most dynamic and, I don't know, fear-defying journeys that he's been on as it relates to chasing hurricanes. But give me the specifics about the premiere.
Yeah, absolutely. So the show premieres on Sunday, like you said, at 6 p.m. Central Time. And Weather Spy, you can watch it on your connected TV. It's like Apple TV or Roku or whatever, or you could just watch it on the app, which you can, it's like a mobile app that you can get on, Androids or iPhones or iPads or whatever. You can just download the app Weather Spy, and then the show Mission Hurricane is right there. Now, the premiere of each new episode is 6 p.m. Sundays every week. But once the show premieres, you can watch it on demand at any time.
Yeah, that's really cool. As I mentioned, you fell in love with coastal Mississippi. I've talked to on the show, at least now, you're the third Californian. We have a lot of Californians, incidentally, moving here. In fact, that my son Jordan is a real estate lawyer, and he said that there are people from California bringing cash because they're selling their houses for a lot of money, and they're coming to coastal Mississippi. And while the prices here have gone up, the truth is it's still a great coastal purchase. Value in that, but that's not why you came here. You came here because you fell in love with it. You spent a hurricane season here. You're someone who likes to run and ride your bike, and the downtown vibe of Bay St. Louis, the downtown vibe of places like Ocean Springs, even really attracted you. And so now you're building a house. It's exciting, but why don't you give us an update? Where are you on that process?
Yeah, so ground has been broken, the foundation's been laid. I'm getting very excited now. I've never built a house before, and I didn't realize how it's a process, and it does not move as fast as you think it's going to move. There's all the my house plans had to be approved by the historical commission first. They had to make sure they were cool with it because I'm building in the historical district, which, by the way, I'm happy that there is that district and that requirement, because that's why the historical district of Bay St. Louis is so beautiful, because they require that the houses be beautiful, which is awesome. And then there's there were other kind of permitting that needed to happen. Now it's happened. Concrete has been poured. The foundation is actually being laid now. I'm actually coming there in a couple of days to kind of check on things and meet with some various suppliers of materials and stuff. But it should be up. Hopefully, it's not a huge house, and I'm hoping it's going to be up during the summer. I mean, now it's moving, so I'm getting very excited now, just seeing it actually starting to rise up on that property.
So as you were looking into insurance and other aspects, did you study all the building standards, like gold standard, for example, which is the way we built our house? Are you really into the sort of the hurricane fortification of this new house?
Oh, 100%. That's actually a big part of it for me. So I'm building a house so that, and I'm not exaggerating, that if there's a repeat of Camille, a Category 5 where the eye passed right over Bay St. Louis, or another Katrina, that I'd be cool to ride out that storm in this house. So I'm doing all kinds of things. I mean, it's got pretty good elevation for coastal Mississippi. The property's 19 feet. The house is going to be raised 4 feet, which means it would take basically a 500-year event for water to reach the property. It did during Katrina, but that was a 500-year event. Using special kind of siding, James Hardy siding, which is very impact resistant, standing seam roof, which is, I noticed this even in Hurricane Dorian in the Bahamas, those roofs stay on in any kind of wind, heavy shutters that look really pretty, but also can close over the windows. I mean, this place is it's got a lot of kind of old school charm, because it's an extremely traditional style. That's what I asked of the architect, or the draftswoman. I wanted something that looks like just like it basically restored historical house, but it's going to be, don't be fooled by its charm. This thing's going to be a bunker.
I'm not surprised to hear that. Hey, listen, good luck with your premiere. Look forward to hopefully seeing you when you come to town, and good luck with your house. And I know it's got to be draining to try to sort of manage it from Los Angeles. That's not easy to do, but it's been a pleasure to catch up with you, my friend.
Thanks, Ricky. It's really great to be back. I appreciate your hospitality.
This has been Josh Morgerman, the top hurricane chaser in the world, whose show Mission Hurricane premieres this Sunday on the Weather Spy. Excuse me, Weather Spy. There you go. Okay, have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.